inshallah. Also, could I request brothers to, sisters and those online, to rectify their intentions. And once they mentioned that the only thing that human beings can do in their ability is they can only do 3% of the actual full that needs to be done. The rest is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And within that 3% is included to plan, to get up and move, and to have the intention. Alhamdulillah, you have come. So rectify your intention to actually please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to learn what pleases Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to learn and understand what pleases Him, to act upon that, to go and share it with others. And then as this is also important for ourselves to clear all the knowledge we have, drop the baggage. You know, you are nothing, you have, this is a quote they have mentioned, we should think like that, rectify that within ourselves. We have no knowledge, we know nothing at all. Because in that way, those that are speaking can inshallah write on our heart, write on the blank piece of paper that we may have. For no matter how big the bottle is, it may be a bucket, it may be a swimming pool, if there's a cover on top, no water can be poured in there. And for that inshallah, we are also going to have a machine recited. And then that is also a time and moment where a person can get themselves into the zone, rectify their intention, remember why they are here, what they are doing, forget everything and what is going to happen also, forget the depressions and the worries, and focus on the moment, focus on the time. And inshallah, for the request once again for brothers to come forward and to so please the first semicircle, the front row should be inshallah sorted out. And then for the akhla, we'll come inshallah and enjoy. Inshallah, for the request of Allah to come and recite the machine. Yeah, inshallah.
Which one should take this one? Okay, that's fine. Because started new channel. Started promoting.
Sallallahu alayka ya Rasulullah, wa sallam alayka ya Habiballah. आज मेरी नात सुनाई तो अजब क्या, आज मेरी नात सुनाई तो अजब क्या, सुन गई वो मुझे पास बुलाई तो अजब क्या, उन पर तुम गुनाहगार का सब हाल खुला है, उन पर तो खुला है उस पर वो दामन में छुपाए तो अजब क्या और मूढ़ा रखना के गुनाहगार बहुत मूढ़ा के रखना के गुनाहगार बहुत गुनाहगार मैयत को मेरी देखने आई तो अजब क्या मैयत को मेरी देखने आई तो अजब क्या और दीदार के काबिल तो नहीं चश्मे तमन्ना दीदार के काबिल तो नहीं चश्मे तमन्ना लेकिन वो कभी ख्वाब में आई तो अजब क्या लेकिन वो कभी ख्वाब में आई तो अजब क्या और मैं ऐसा गुनाहगार हूँ कि कुछ हद नहीं है मैं ऐसा खताकार हूँ जिसकी कोई हद नहीं है फिर भी मेरे ऐबों को छुपाई तो अजब क्या वो फिर भी मेरे ऐबों को छुपाई अजब क्या
It's okay, you didn't knock me out, otherwise you'd have to sit here. Jazakallah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم Alhamdulillah, all praises to Allah Azza wa Jal, the creator of heaven and earth and everything that exists in between, and may His everlasting peace and blessings be upon His greatest creation, our Master Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We could never thank Allah Azza wa Jal for giving us life, bringing us into existence, but not only that, making us the best of creation. And also not only that, Allah Azza wa Jalla created us in a time we are the ummatis of the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who is the pinnacle of creation. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when they came onto this earth as the final prophet, the final messenger, he sallallahu alaihi wasallam brought two things and left behind two things. And if we hold firm to these two things, if we grasp these two things, or for a select few, if they delve deeply into these two things, they will remain firm in their iman, and they may even be a source of guiding others to iman. So what are these two things? The first thing was wahi, the sacred revelation, the kitab, the book, the Quran al-Kareem. And the second thing that was brought by the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was a pure heart, qalbin salim, a pure heart. Allah Azza wa Jal says in the Quran, Yawma, that day nothing will benefit, mala, not your wealth, wala bununa, not your children, illa, except man atat Allah, whoever brings biqalbin salim, a pure heart. The day where nothing, neither your wealth nor your sons will avail you, but only he will prosper that brings Allah Azza wa Jal a sound and pure heart. A brief explanation of the ayah. It means that nothing will benefit man on that day. Neither his wealth will benefit him, or his children won't benefit him. It means that neither of any of his worldly possessions, anything that he owns on this worldly possession, will not benefit him. Nor will any of his worldly relationships will benefit him. The only thing that will benefit him on that day, on the day of judgment, is qalbin salim, a pure heart, a purified heart. If the entire success on the day of judgment is based on this, and Allah Azza wa Jalla said in the Quran, لَقَدْ قَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ. You have indeed in the Messenger of Allah Azza wa Jal a beautiful example. That you have for you in the beloved, the Messenger, Uswatun Hasana, a beautiful example. Then surely he, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, must have been the husna, the uswa husna of that pure heart. So the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the perfect example of the pure heart. He must have been the noble example, the perfect model for that purified heart. So the beloved Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam brought two things and left two things as his legacy. One is a pure revelation and the second is a pure heart. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the Quran al-Kareem in a number of places, what we call the purpose, the reasons why Allah Azza wa Jal sent the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and there are 4 in number. 4 reasons why Allah Azza wa Jal sent the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Yatlu alayhim ayatihi wa yuzakkihim wa yu'allamuhum al-kitaba wal hikmah. Who recites to them his verses and makes them pure and teaches them the book and the wisdom. The first thing, yatlu alayhim ayatihi, is to recite unto them the verses of Allah. This was the sole and exclusive function of the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and that passed away with the passing of the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam from this world. But the remaining 3 remain alive and will remain alive until the Day of Judgment. The second one was yuzakkihim. It means to purify the hearts, to teach them the way of tazkiyah, to teach them the ways and the methods that they chose to come before Allah Azza wa Jal with a pure heart. Tazkiyah, to make them pure, to make their hearts pure, so they can travel towards Allah Azza wa Jal and then present themselves to Allah Azza wa Jal on the Day of Judgment. The third was وَيُعَلِّمُهُمُ الْكِتَابَ, to teach them the book, to give them talim, to give them the ilm of the book, of the kitab, of the Quran. This is a very revealing verse, a very revealing ayah, because this shows you deep legitimacy or the authority, authenticity of scholarship in our deen. To learn, to become a scholar, to become an imam. Because if you look at the Prophet ﷺ, he recited the Quran in Arabic. Who did he ﷺ recite it to immediately? When they got the way of the Quran, who did they recite it to? The Sahaba radiallahu anhu, who were the masters of the Arabic language. There were people who used to put their poems on the Kaaba. They used to memorize thousands and thousands of verses of poetry. So they were already experts in the Arabic language. So if simply knowing Arabic language was enough, then yatlu alayhim ayatihi, to simply recite, to do tilawa of the verses would have been enough. Why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mention it as a separate, distinct function in the Quran? That he would teach them the book. Why? Why does this book need to be taught? If they, we send our children to the masjid to learn the Quran. And they start off and then they learn the book. But once they finish the Quran, they think they've learned Arabic. So if the Sahaba already knew the Arabic language and they're already experts, why do they need to be taught the Quran? I mean, we get taught because Arabic is not our language, so we get to learn to read the Quran. But because it needs to be explained, it needs to be understood. And this is a tradition that has continued through the Muslim world and throughout the Islamic history. In fact, if you look at all the famous tafsirs, the famous commentaries on the Quran by Al-Razi or Al-Qurtubi or Ibn Kathir, if you look at all these commentaries and tafsirs, all these are in huge volumes. There's massive big volumes of them. And who were they written for? Were they written for non-Arabs? Were they written for a person who did not understand Arabic to explain to them, them the Quran? No. These tafsir, these huge volumes, they weren't written for non-Muslims or non-Arabic speaking people. In fact, the Arabic in some of these tafsirs is, if you've read any of them, is even more difficult than the Arabic that is being used in the Quran. So when you look at some of the tafsirs that people read, the language or the Arabic is even more difficult than that's in the Quran. So these huge volumes of tafsirs were written for people who knew the Arabic language. Even the Arab ulama and the ulama who were masters of the Arabic language used to consult these tafsirs, these books of commentaries on the Quran. So you see how what we think of it today, that it's not just enough to learn just to read, and it's not just enough to read the translation of the Quran. It has to be taught and it has to be understood. I don't want anybody thinking, I'm not trying to keep anyone from the Quran. I'm actually inviting you to study the Quran deeply, to study the tafsir and to study the deep meanings of the Quran. So the third function was يُعَلِّمُ كِتَابَ يُعَلِّمُهُمُ الْكِتَابَ. And finally the fourth function is وَالْحِكْمَةِ, to teach them the wisdom. The Mufassirin, the scholars of Tafsir, write that hikmah here in this ayah means the wisdom, the knowledge of how to live a collective life. The mamulat, the interaction, how to live as a family, how to live as a member of the family, how to live as a member of the community, how to live as a member of the society, how to live as a collective and be a part of the ummah. All these things that pertain to a collective are summarized in this one word, hikmah. That's where the wisdom comes. The Prophet ﷺ taught us not just how to live as individuals. If you're living by yourself, all by yourself, you don't need any wisdom. You need wisdom when you live amongst the family, the society, amongst the ummah. That's where you need wisdom and hikmah. I mean, Hazrat Sahib has explained it many times, the vertical one and the horizontal one. The vertical one, that's for you as an individual. Your connection with Allah Azza wa Jal, that is individual to you. Your ibadah, how you worship Allah. And it's been said many times that if you really truly want to know what kind of individual you are, see how you are when you are alone. That determines what kind of individual you are amongst the people. That doesn't determine your real face, because we all have a mask. We put a face on for people. But what do you do when you're on your own? Do you read tahajjud? And when you in the morning to wake up? Or do you sleep through the night because you know nobody else is watching you? Do you watch TV till 2, 3 o'clock in the morning? Or do you do some ibadat? Or do you read the Quran? What do you do in your spare time? That determines. That is an individual. Hazrat once told us that once Imam Hussain radiallahu anh was on the horse and somebody grabbed the reins of the horse and said, "Oh Imam, teach us about Islam." And they summarized it in 2 words. They said, "Worship Allah and serve the people." And that is what's been said here. The individual and the collective. There are 2 things that we mentioned the Prophet ﷺ left. First one was Wahi, the sacred revelation, and the second was the pure, untainted heart. The 2 sciences, the disciplines that deal with each of these are the sciences through which we learn about Wahi, the revelation. It is called ilm, the sacred knowledge. So the Wahi, the Quran, the knowledge we get, that's the sacred knowledge. That's what it relates to. The science by which you learn about the purified heart, how to purify your heart, the qalb, that is called tazkiyah. The purification and the disciplining of the heart and the soul. Unfortunately today, there is so much decline in the ummah. Be it as individuals or as in a collective, precisely we've not drank from these 2 wells because we have not lived up to the legacy of these 2 things that the Rasulullah ﷺ left behind. In other words, we are neither people of ilm nor we are people of tazkiyah. Today I want to explore why we have lost that ilm. We'll find that there are 2 reasons why we've lost this ilm. Know that our very iman depends on these 2 things. That a person who does not have the knowledge, or that person who does not purify himself, he is endangering his very faith. So there are 2 reasons why we've lost this knowledge in this day and age. And it's very important because if you don't grasp these 2, you will lose your iman as well. First is what we have lost. We've lost the qadr, the value of the amana that has been given to us. The importance of the sacred knowledge. We don't have the value of this ilm in our hearts. As a society, as a Muslim community, we don't have the value of this knowledge. And many of you will be thinking, no we don't, we value it. But I will explain to you. Just to understand how little we value it, if you can just look in contrast to how much we value the knowledge of this world, the knowledge of this dunya. You've all gone through the system. A person will study in school for 12 years. When we first go to primary school, up to the first 12 years. And then, when you start from about 4 or 5, and then you go to 11 years, and then at 17 you come out. For the first 12 years you've spent at school acquiring this knowledge of the dunya. Then you go to college for 2 to 4 years, 3 years. And that becomes 16 years. And then you'll go to university to get your degree, and another couple of years. And then a person can spend 16, 20, 22 years, those that do PhD and further studies. And what? They're spending 20 odd years, 22 years, 24 years, 26 years. These people are doing the masters They're 26 years old before they, 27, 28 years old before they even get the degree and the master's degree. And this is for the secular knowledge of this dunya. I'm not saying that there's anything bad in pursuing this secular knowledge. But if we want to claim that we are people of balance, people, everything in moderation, bro, you should balance everything in moderation. That's what we always saying to each other. Many of us we say that, but we should join both the deen and the dunya. And we'll just take one thing as an example. That how we balanced your knowledge of dunya and how we balanced the knowledge of deen. So much so that there are people out there, qualified doctors, professors and very learned people who've done their PhDs and if their own father was to die, they wouldn't even have the knowledge what to do. They don't know the sunnah way of performing a ghusl or of the corpse of the father. If you ask them to lead the janazah, they wouldn't know how to lead the janazah prayer. Despite all their PhDs and despite of all their professorship and what have you they've acquired for the dunya, they wouldn't know how to read the janazah for their own father. They don't know the simple rulings, the do's and don'ts of death, or each and every one of you is going to die, and you think it was so important that at least you would prepare to read the janazah of your father, if nothing else, or the janazah of your family members, because you inevitably, every single one of us is going to lose someone. And yet, how many of us here can lead the janazah prayer? But most of us are, chitte and pada anyway. But I'm talking about those people who have invested so much in the knowledge of the dunya that they give it such prominence, and they're obviously capable. They have that ability. They're very, academically, they're very bright. I mean, you can say, well, let's see, we can't learn anything. But these people, obviously, they've shown that they have that ability, but they give it very little value. That if they turned some of that ability towards the deen, they could easily learn it and accomplish that. If you asked them to divide the inheritance of their father according to Sharia and what is pleasing to Allah, they wouldn't know. If you ask them how to lower the body into the grave, which way the face is supposed to be, I think they wouldn't know. They don't know. If you ask them, if you say to them, look, this is your father's janazah, gets the shroud, the coffin, they wouldn't know how big the cloth is, how much they need, or how it's supposed to be wrapped on. And I'm sure I've said this before, I went to Birmingham once, and I was speaking to the Imam, and he said to me today, he said there was a janazah happening today, and he said I had to ask one or two the muqtaddis to help me to give ghusl to this mayyit. And he says, because there was nobody to help me. I says, where was his children? He says, his children were outside smoking in the car park. They said, we're scared. This is what happens. The children were scared, his sons. They won't watch do the ghusl of the body. So the Imam had to ask total strangers to help him. So much so that education, they don't even know. They cannot even perform the burial service of the father when the father passes away. This is what shows that we have no importance for the ilm of deen. No value for the sacred knowledge. They couldn't be bothered with this type of knowledge. I mean, there was this one guy who was sat in a meeting, and the phone went off. He went outside and he spoke for about 10-15 minutes, and he came back. He looked a bit disturbed, and somebody asked him, you know, everything okay? He was not on the phone. He said, I got a phone call about my father, and my father had been in hospital for a while and he's been sick, and the hospital have just rang me to say he's died and he's passed away. So he said, I quickly made a call to the local funeral parlour and told them which hospital my father's body is, and asked them to pick his father up and for them to arrange all the funeral and burial service for him. And this was the Gora. And this is how the Goras do it. You know, everything, the undertakers take care of everything. But we are Muslims. And then we spend so much time amongst them that we become like that too. You know, this is the state of the Muslims when you lack the knowledge, and if you don't know what to do, this is what you're going to do. And not only do we lack the knowledge of this legal rulings of death, you know, we also lack the knowledge of the importance of death. You know, what it means to go from this world into the Alam Barzakh, and how much your father or your family member, whoever's passed away, you know, the father's passed away, how much the father needs his son at that moment in time. You know, they need them du'as, they need them, you know, to the janazah salah, they need the family members at that time. How lacking of the knowledge and awareness of feelings, hearts that they have. So we have lost the value of the knowledge in this day and age. You know, if you was to ask a young man who's studying at college, and you said to them, what do you plan, you know, for your future? What do you want to do when when you've graduated, when you've got your degree? You know, and if you ask somebody who's studying, even if they're in the first year, they'll say, well, I'll do my first year and I'll do my second year and third and fourth, and when I've got my degree, you know, if I get it early, after that I will, you know, maybe go abroad, you know, or I will, you know, go to, you know, get my qualification, you know, I'll become a junior doctor, then a qualified doctor, then a consultant, and this, that and the other, and you know, and I'll become senior this and I'll senior that. And if you ask him what's your plans for the deen, he'll look at you, you know, with a blank stare. You know, if you said to him, what's your plan? Every one of you here, if I, you know, those that are studying, if I said to you, you know, what do you want to do when you leave your studies? You'll have all big dreams. But if I said to you, what about the deen? What do you plan for that? And they'll look at you, you know, with a blank stare. But in fact, what if you was to tell him, you'll never, you know, if somebody is studying at college and you said to him, you'll never get past the first year. You know, you will do the first year at, you know, uni and or college and whatever and the next year you'll be still in the first year, and the third year you'll still be in the first year. And you said to him, after 5 years you'll still be in the first year. You know, he'll look at you as if you're crazy. You know, if you're going to college and I say to you, you know, first year, you know, and then the second year you'll still be in the first year, and the third year you'll still be in the first year, you're going to say, uncle, you're crazy. Yeah. You know, you'll say, how dare you suggest that I will not progress in my dunya? How dare you suggest that I will not increase my knowledge in this world? Well, I'm not dumb. You know, of course I'll study and I won't be in the first year forever. You know, that's what you'll say. But if you tell that same person, well, today you know 10 surahs of the Quran and the meaning of 10 surahs, and 1 year from now you'll still only know 10 surahs. No problem. 5 years from now you only know 10 surahs. In 10 years time you'll only know 10 surahs. If you look, you know, if you say to somebody, look, today you know 2-3 sunnah du'as, and from 1 year from now you'll still only know 2-3 sunnah du'as, there's no problem. You know, that same shock is not there. How many of us have been reading the same salah and it's exactly the same as it was 10 years ago? How many of us sat here? And if you go back 5 years, you know the same amount of surahs that you knew then. In fact, I'd even say you know less, because some of the surahs you learned 5 years ago, you've forgotten some of them. I mean, instead of making progress, we slip. We're worse. 3 years ago, I probably learned so many surahs, the du'as, and I've probably forgotten half of them already. Instead of progressing, we go backwards. Same with Ramadan. Ramadan comes and goes, and every year comes and goes, and the same. In fact, you might have had a Ramadan that was really good about 4 or 5 years ago, and since then you slipped. People go on the Hajj and go on Umrah, and they go 10 years later and they're exactly the same. That's... And for those of you who are, you've been not students, think of all the progress you've made in your business, or your career, or your job. Think about that for a second. I mean, I still remember, when I was at school, I never did the paper rounds, but that's the first thing people do, the paper rounds on a bike and things. You get paid pittance. I used to get a job in the market. I used to wake up early in the morning, help somebody to set up, and they used to give me £1.50 for the morning, for 2-3 hours. And then after school, I used to go and help them. And you all think how you started. How you had a little push bike, and then you got a motorbike, and then you're driving big cars and fancy cars. How much progress you've made. Once upon a time, you used to ask your dad for pennies, spends. Dad, give me 2p, I want to buy a lolly. Right? Now just think how much money you got in your pockets. Right? Once upon a time, you used to drive a Datsun. Right? First car, can you remember your first car? Yeah, it was a crappy car, but now look, you're driving flash cars. So just think how much progress you've made in the dunya. But can it be said that you've made the same progress in the deen? I mean, now what your status are, you're like millionaires to a poor person, or a millionaire compared to what you were. Because when you came into this dunya, you knew nothing. You had nothing. Absolutely nothing. You was worse than a beggar. But now look at you. So how much progress you've made in the dunya? Right? How much progress have you made in the deen? Even in your jobs. We've climbed the ladder in our job career, we've climbed the ladder in our cars, we've climbed the ladder in our houses. I remember coming to this country in 1968, my dad used to buy us jeans, and they were always about 3 sizes too big, because he knew that jeans were never going to rip and never get worn out. So we had to fold them about 3-4 times from the bottom so that the length would fit. Yeah. But what I'm trying to say now, just think how much, the clothes that you used to wear when you were a child, and now people wear shoes that are worth £500 and tracksuits worth £500-600. The mind boggles. Just think what the progress you've made, the meals that you eat. The dunya, alhamdulillah, we've excelled. We've excelled and excelled. How many kebabs have you eaten? How many chickens have you eaten? So the meals, there's no holding us back in the progress of dunya. They compare that, and yet we talk about balance. Take a balance, bro. Everything in moderation. Deen and dunya, chill a little bit too. But where is the balance? Does our ilm increase? Does our amal increase? Does our taqwa increase? Does our ikhlas increase? Can you truly say that we join the deen and dunya together? You're deluding yourself. through the shaitan and the nafs have deceived you. And I'm included. When I'm talking to you, I'm talking to myself, so I don't want anybody taking this personally. You know, the shaitan and the dunya, and the shaitan and the nafs has deceived us, and you know, we're so much involved in the dunya, we do so little for the deen. And then we both think about the balance. My brothers, we do need to bring a balance. Dunya, we need to concentrate on our deen and make it a balance. You know, Imam Ghazali Rahmatullah said, you guys are more wiser than I am. Only a fool rejoices while his wealth increases. Only a fool rejoices in his increase in wealth while his life decreases. Right? This dunya, it will not avail you, nor your wealth, nor your children, nor your relationships. Only a pure heart will benefit you on the Day of Judgment. And how many of us are working for a pure heart? And this science, even though it's so important, it's taught very little. You have to search for the science to be taught, and there's very few practitioners who actually teach this knowledge. And this science is taught in this center. And unfortunately, you know, even we don't take it that seriously and wake up. There's many, those that's, you know, very zealously embarked on this journey. Everybody has good intentions. May Allah Azza wa Jal increase their intentions. But then they start to, it's like the marathon when people start. Have you ever seen people on the marathon when they're running? They're so eager, when the tape is cut, everybody's legging it in the beginning, you know, and then see them little on, then start walking, and some drop out. And that's what we are. This is the same thing with tazkiyah. It's not something you achieve and think you have to do this long life all the way through. So when we first start on this journey of tazkiyah, you know, everybody's going 120 miles an hour, and then the speed slows and slows and slows and slows, and then it stops, and then it's stop and start, stop and start, stop and start. But may Allah Azza wa Jal keep everybody on the Sirat al-Mustaqim and make it easy for all of us. Thank you for coming. Please forgive me if I said anything untoward, but if anything that has inspired you, that is from Allah Azza wa Jal. Wa ma alayna illa al-balagh. Jazakallah khair.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Just a few announcements, inshallah. As our Ustaad Shafiq have mentioned, there is actually a methodology and a course of self-purification taught in the centers out there, where a person in great relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and with people, that their body, mind, heart and soul will develop and start to live in the way that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam taught us how to be. And right now there is an actual international conference of spirituality taking place in the country of Senegal. And it's mentioned that there is about 2 million people attending. And Sheikh Ahmed Dabbar are also there. And if you want to follow and keep up to date with what it is they are doing, you should follow the Facebook page. And every person that's come here, including myself, I believe we have benefited in one way or another. So what we can do is we can make the intention right now that we will go out there and we will call other people, and not only that, we will also share the Facebook page as well as like it, so that other people out there can benefit also. And for anybody who has any special, they want to consult with somebody at one-to-one level about the path of purification and the tazkiyah course, we do have our relevant ustads here, so you can approach myself inshallah, and I will point you in the direction of Brother Sadiq, or if you know them, you can approach them yourselves to give down your name inshallah and meet this ustad. Inshallah, there will be another announcement given by our brother Ustad Ihtisham, inshallah.
Okay, Jazakallah. Just finally, as the Ustad mentioned, that we do lack knowledge in a lot of areas, but one area that we do not lack knowledge is about our marriage. A lot of our brothers and sisters, we get married, but we don't know what the rights of our husbands or our wives are, and then they suffer, and you're suffering as well, sometimes in silence, but sometimes the relationship ends. Then on the Day of Judgment, we're going to be in a lot of mess. So for your own sake, for your own sanity, for your spouse, and for your children as well, those of you who are married and maybe are suffering, and those maybe who are not married and want to get married, but want to know what it is to be a good husband or a good wife, or those who are just newly married, or those who are maybe having that much problems but want to avoid them in the future, then as you can see there's this banner here under the table. Please register your interest. There are 2-day workshops that take place, help brothers and sisters to perfect their marriage basically, and then inshallah live a life of bliss and sukoon. It is highly recommended that you attend this. So after the zikr, a brother will be standing here. Please come and give your name, and then inshallah attend one of these programs. So if you know anybody who is suffering, recommend this to them, and inshallah you will be rewarded as well for that. Jazakallah khair. Okay, inshallah now we're going to have the zikr. So just remind the brothers, please can you stand up so you can get some blood flowing to your legs. Brother will turn the lights off, and focus now. And the 3 keys are very, very important. That Allah is watching me, so try to bring that feeling into you, that Allah is watching you. He's going to listen to you now, not just your tongue, but He's going to hear your thoughts, He's going to hear your heart, and He is with you. So inshallah now the brother will begin. So now you can sit down please. Jazakallah khair.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. صدق الله العظيم. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. مولاي صل وسلم دائما أبدا. مولاي صل وسلم دائما على حبيبك خير الخلق كلهم على حبيبك خير الخلق كلهم هو الحبيب الذي ترجى شفاعته هو الحبيب الذي ترجى شفاعته لكل هول من الأحوال مولاي صل وسلم دائما أبدا على حبيبك خير الخلق كلهم هو الحبيب الذي ترجى شفاعته هو الحبيب الذي ترجى شفاعته لكل حول من الأهوال مقتحم مولاي صل وسلم دائما أبدا على حبيبك خير الخلق كلهم يا ربي بالمصطفى بلغ مقاصدنا يا ربي بالمصطفى بلغ مقاصدنا واغفر لنا ما مدى يا واسع الكرم مولاي صل وسلم دائما أبدا على حبيبك خير الخلق محمد سيد الكونين والثقلين محمد سيد الكونين والثقلين والفريقين من غرب ومن عجم مولاي صل وسلم دائما أبدا على حبيبك خير الخلق كلهم مولاي صل وسلم دائما أبدا على حبيبك خير الخلق كلهم فاعلم أنه لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله فاعلم أنه لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله لا إلا الله ربي اغفر وارحم وأنت خير الراحمين ربي اغفر وارحم وأنت خير الراحمين ربي اغفر وارحم وأنت خير الراحمين يا أول الأولين يا آخر الآخرين يا رحم المساكين يا ذا القوة المتين يا ذا الجلال والإكرام يا رب العالمين يا مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين يا أرحم الراحمين ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك إني كنت من الظالمين رب ارحمهما كما ربياني صغيرا يا أرحم الراحمين رب ارحمهما كما ربياني صغيرا يا مالك يوم الدين رب اغفر وارحم وأنت خير الراحمين رب اغفر وارحم وأنت خير الراحمين يا الله يا رحمن يا رحيم يا كريم يا ستار يا أيوب يا ستار العيوب يا غفار الذنوب يا مولا يا الله हम तेरे गुनाहगार बंदे, बदकार से आकार बंदे, तेरी ही दी हुई तौफीक से तेरी बारगाह में हाजिर हैं। या इलाहुल आलमीन, हम तेरा शुक्र अदा करते हैं। चाह जाए कि तेरा शुक्र अदा करने के लायक तो नहीं, लेकिन तेरे फजल और तेरे करम को सामने रखते हुए तेरा शुक्र अदा करते हैं। और तेरा सबसे बड़ा शुक्र ये कि तू हमारा रब है। या इलाहुल आलमीन, हमारे शुक्र को कबूल व मंजूर फरमा। या इलाहुल आलमीन, तेरा शुक्र अदा करते हैं कि तूने अपने हबीब अलैहिस्सलाम जैसी नेमत हमें अता फरमाई। मौला करीम, हमारा शुक्र कबूल फरमा। या इलाहुल आलमीन, तेरा शुक्र अदा करते हैं कि तूने ईमान के बाद सबसे बड़ी नेमत जो हमें अता फरमाई, अपने मशाइख, अपने औलिया और सैयदना अब्दुल अज़ीज़ दब्बाग़, सैयदना हुज़ूर गौस सकलैन, शहनशाह बगदाद, सैयदना इमाम हुसैन, सैयदना अली अल मुर्तज़ा, शेर खुदा, सैयदना अहमद दब्बाग़ जैसे औलिया अल्लाह का दाम नसीब फरमाया। या इलाहुल आलमीन, तेरा शुक्र अदा करते हैं, कबूल मंजूर फरमा। या अल्लाह, गुनाहगार हैं, बदकार हैं, स्याकार हैं, जैसे भी हैं, डूबे हुए ज़िल्लत में हैं, तेरे हैं। मौला करीम, अपने फजल और करम से हम सब के गुनाहों को मुआफ़ फरमा दे। सत्तारी की चादर को हमारे ऊपर ताने रख। या अल्लाह, अगर तूने हमारे अयूब खोल दिए तो कहीं भी मुँह दिखाने के लायक ना होंगे। या अल्लाह, या अरहमर राहिमीन, जो लोग भी तेरी इस बारगाह में हाजिर हुए हैं, तेरी रज़ा के लिए हाजिर हुए हैं, या इलाहुल आलमीन, उनकी परेशानियों को, मुश्किलों को, तकलीफ़ों को दूर फरमा दे। या इलाहुल आलमीन, जो दर्दमंद हैं, तेरा दर्द लेके आए हैं, उनको अपना दर्द अता फरमा दे। तेरे महबूब का इश्क लेके आए हैं, उन्हें अपने महबूब का इश्क अता फरमा दे। तेरी मोहब्बत लेके आए हैं, उन्हें अपनी मोहब्बत के करोड़वें, अरबवें, खरबवें हिस्से में से एक ज़र्रा अता फरमा दे। या इलाहुल आलमीन, या अरहमर राहिमीन, इन उठे हुए हाथों की लाज रख ले। हमारे उस्ताद, हमारे मौला, हमारे सईदी, हमारे शेख, हमारे मुर्शिद, तेरी राह में, तेरी रज़ा के लिए, तेरा पैगाम, तेरे हबीब अलैहिस्सलाम का पैगाम पहुँचाने के लिए दुनिया के कोने कोने में मारे मारे फिर रहे हैं। मौला करीम, उनसे राज़ी हो जा और उनको अपने आप से राज़ी रख। या इलाहुल आलमीन, उनकी जुमला हैरानियाँ, वैरानियाँ, परेशानियाँ, तकलीफ़ें, तंग दस्तियाँ जो हैं दूर फरमा दे। या इलाहुल आलमीन, उनको अपना ख़ास मुशाहिदा अता फरमा। अपने हबीब अलैहिस्सलाम की ख़ास मोहब्बत और ख़ास कुर्ब अता फरमा। या इलाहुल आलमीन, जो लोग परेशान हाल हैं, तेरी बारगाह में हाजिर हुए हैं, उनकी परेशानियों को दूर फरमा, उनकी दिली जायज़ ख्वाहिशात को, तमन्नाओं को पूरा फरमा। या इलाहुल आलमीन, हमें तुझसे तेरे हबीब अलैहिस्सलाम के वसीला से मांगते हैं, कबूल मंजूर फरमा, अता फरमा। हमें मांगने का सलीका नहीं आता, अता फरमा। हमें मांगने का तरीका नहीं आता, अता फरमा। या इलाहुल आलमीन, अपने पास से अता फरमा, अपने करम से अता फरमा। या इलाहुल आलमीन, तू हमारा हो जा और हमें अपना बना ले। या इलाहुल आलमीन, अगर तूने हमें छोड़ दिया तो कहीं मुँह दिखाने के काबिल ना रहेंगे, किसी जा के लिए ना रहेंगे, किसी मुकाम के लिए ना रहेंगे। या अल्लाह, या रहमान, या करीम, तू करीमों में सबसे बड़ा करीम है, तू रहीमों में सबसे बड़ा रहीम है। तेरी रहमान शान है। मौला, अपने फ़ज़ल और करम वाला मामला फरमा दे, अपने फ़ज़ल और करम वाला मामला फरमा दे। हमें अपना सच्चा सुच्चा बंदा बना दे। आमीन, बिजाह नबी अमीन, सैयदुल मुरसलीन, आमीन।